Erev Tov, everyone. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be the Torah study in depth with yours truly, Rabbi A. Good to have you all here this evening. Okay, so we are going to continue on in our in-depth study with Rashi's commentary on the Sefer Shemot, and just a little housekeeping to do that we will not be on next week. Neither the old rabbis discuss on Monday night or the Torah study on Wednesday night in preparation for Pesach. I know that most of you probably still have a lot to do for Pesach, just as we do. So we're going to take the week off, but we will be back for Shabbat and for Shabbat services. Okay, so last Shabbat, as we were doing the Torah readings, we had three Torahs readings last week, and the last one being HaChodesh, the Sabbath before Pesach, or just before Pesach. This year, Pesach falls right at the end of Shabbat. So last week was HaChodesh, and typically there are some stories that I read for the Haftorah, or after the Haftorah. It's a Segula for the coming of Pesach, and I had completely forgot about it, and I forgot to bring the stories in. So I said that I would do it this evening. So I did remember the stories, and just want to make sure that I got the chat on, because I'm not seeing anybody talking in the chat room yet. So anyway, so I said we would do the studies this evening before we got into this Torah study. So without further ado, let us get on with the stories. Let me give you a little intro in here. Like I said, this is a segula from the Kosnitzer Magid. The segula is a protective or a benevolent ritual or blessing in Kabbalistic and Talmudic tradition. This segula from the Kosnitzer Magid is recited. Three well-known stories related to Pesach on Shabbat HaChodesh. Unfortunately, like I said, I forgot. And during the week leading up to Pesach, the segula is that the stories will bless the Jewish people with an abundance of provisions and necessities for the upcoming Pesach. These are the three stories. I myself have rewritten them to kind of give my own spin on the stories, and I think make them a little more appealing to the kinder. Simcha, good to see you. Yeah, before we get started, I have the stories here somewhere. Let me, I know I brought them in. I just gotta, oh, here they are. Okay, let me just get over here and get the stories off of the floor, and we will read the stories here. Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov Zeta. So, we got the stories. Yes. You remember? Yes, I did remember the stories, and yeah, we're going to. Well, I thought it would be nice, since we are taking a break from Zeta Story Corner, that to read these stories, that we would bring you on to actually read the stories. I would love to. Yeah. You know how I love doing stories. Yes, I know you do love doing stories. So let me. Oh, Regina has joined us. Hello, Regina. Good to have you. Okay, so let us, without further ado, let's get you on your camera. Okay, there I am. I am a good-looking Zeta on the camera, huh? Okay, so let us read this Segula from the Koznitzer Magid. There are three stories. So the first story is called The Barrels of Water. Once upon a time, as these stories so often start, there was a certain poor Jew who was worried that he would not be able to provide for his family for the coming Pesach. Day after day, he worried and pondered how he could make enough money to provide for their needs and still have a delightful Pesach. So, one day, he came upon an idea that he was sure that Hashem would guarantee that his family would enjoy a wonderful Pesach. Well, how nice for him. Now, the poor Jew knew that there was a shortage of brandy in the shtetl where he lived, and there would be a big demand for brandy before Pesach. He also knew that none of the nearby towns or cities had any brandy to spare. So his idea was to search out the next country and purchase brandy there, bring it back and sell it for a profit, and have enough money to supply his family's needs and have a good Pesach and have money left over for the rest of the year. So he took all his money and the little savings he had put away for Pesach. He asked Hashem that he should make his plans successful, and he headed off across the border to the next country to find a place to purchase brandy. Okay, so he hitched up his horse and wagon. He kissed his wife and children, blessed them, and left his family, his shtetl, and country behind. The poor Jew traveled the strange country from city to city, looking for a place to purchase brandy. But the brandy shortage appeared to affect more than just his local area. Since he knew his plan would succeed, if he had faith and kept confident, after many miles and weeks of searching, he finally found a place that had an overabundance of brandy. So he was able to purchase enough barrels of brandy to fill his wagon. The poor Jew was overjoyed. He thanked Hashem for the great blessing and proceeded back to his own country, his shtetl, and finally home. However, when he reached the border between the two countries, he was told that he did not have the proper licenses to bring the brandy out of one country and into the other. He was ordered to leave the wagon at the border until he could present the proper documentation. Sorrowfully and downhearted, he got on his horse and crossed the border back to his own country. He stopped by the side of the road to to water his horse and say the mincha prayers. As he prayed, he poured out his heart to Hashem, asked for parnasa and a way to make his plans successful. As he finished, an idea came to him. He remembered that he was not too far from the home of Rabbi Reb Melech. He quickly got on his horse and traveled to the Rebbe's home. When he arrived, the poor Jew poured out his heart to the Rebbe. The Rebbe Reb Melech told him to return immediately to the border and tell the officials that the barrels contained only water. And if they doubted, they need only to taste the contents of the barrel. He did as the Rebbe instructed him. And when he told the officials to taste the contents of the barrel, to their surprise, it was only water. And the Jew had told them the truth. The officials did not understand why the Jew had come all that way just for barrels of water. But they returned the barrels to the Jew and sent him on his way. Now, the poor Jew was even poorer. He had spent all his money, and all he had to show for it was some barrels of water. And there was certainly no shortage of water where he lived. The poor Jew returned to the Rebbe crying, "Now, how will I even provide for my family and for the holiday? The barrels of brandy were my only way of earning a livelihood, and now they are all full of water." The Rebbe Reb Melech asked him, "Have you so little faith in Hashem? Go out and taste the contents of the barrel." To the Jews' great delight, the barrels were again full of brandy. The poor Jew returned home. He sold the brandy at a great profit. When the nearby towns and villages got word of the brandy, they all traveled to the shtetl to purchase brandy and other things the people had to offer. The entire shtetl had a very profitable week before Pesach. The poor Jew, now a rich Jew, invited his friends and all the poor of the shtetl to celebrate the Pesach with him and his family. And the entire shtetl celebrated the Pesach in abundance. So that is the first story. Okay. So Kelsey Lynn has joined us. Good to have you, Kelsey. Okay, surprise, it's me. Okay. This story is called The King's Ring. There was once a king who had a very precious ring that he wore constantly. One day, while the king was out hunting, he lost his ring. So he thought, during the hunt, the king and his entourage stopped to eat. After eating, the king went to wash his hands in the nearby stream, and the ring slipped from his finger without his notice. One of his advisors had come to the stream after to wash his hands. And lo and behold, he saw the king's ring in the water. The advisor thought to himself, if I keep the ring, I can sell it and be a very rich man and not have to serve the king any longer. Looking around and seeing there was no one watching him, he slipped the ring into his pocket. Once the king noticed the ring was missing, he became very upset. He had the entire castle searched, but the ring was nowhere to be found. So the king announced that he would pay handsomely everyone who searched for the missing ring, and he would greatly reward the person who found and returned the ring. In the king's land, there was a poor Jew who had no money for a Pesach. The poor Jew was telling his wife that he was worried that there would be no money to purchase what was needed for Pesach. The Jew's wife told her husband of the king's offer and encouraged him to volunteer for the search. So the poor Jew went to the castle and volunteered and joined the search for the ring. Each day, all those who searched were paid handsomely, and each day the Jew took the money home to his wife, who put it away for Pesach. With the money the Jew earned that week, his wife was able to purchase all the necessities for Pesach. The search went on into a second week. The poor Jew, being a generous man, told his wife, since we have more than we need for Pesach, I will continue to search for the king's ring, and we will be able to invite many guests for the Pesach Seder this year. His wife agreed. However, she said, but you must stop searching before the fast of the firstborn. The Jew agreed. So they invited their friends and neighbors for the Pesach Seder. Now, the king's advisor, the one who had the ring in his possession all along, was a wicked anti-Semite. He loathed the idea of the poor Jew being part of the search and hated it when he had to pay the Jew at the end of each day. On the day of the fast of the firstborn, the Jew did not show up to the castle for this search. The king's advisor was curious as to why the Jew had not come to search and be paid as he had done the previous weeks. So he decided to spy out the reason for the Jew's absence. It was the first night of Pesach, the Pesach Seder, when he arrived at the Jew's home. He peeked in through the window and saw the Jew and his guests eating and drinking and not searching for the king's ring. The king's advisor saw his opportunity to throw any suspicion off himself and rid himself of the Jew at the same time. The advisor ran back to the palace. Your Majesty, Your Majesty, he cried. You've been fooled. The Jew who you have been paying to find your ring had your ring all along, and is holding a banquet to celebrate how he has fooled you. The king could not believe it. He always thought good of the poor Jew. This cannot be, said the king to the advisor. He is an honest and good man. The advisor said, I'll show you. If you will follow me to the home of the Jew. And with that, the king followed the advisor to the house of the poor Jew. When they arrived, the king and the advisor peered in the window. There was the Jew at the table, full of guests, eating and drinking like a king. Still, the king was still reluctant to think bad of his Jewish subject. The king told the advisor, the Jew is probably questioning these men to see if any of them know about the whereabouts of my ring. Let's listen and see if one of them confesses or they name the person who took the ring. As the king and the advisor listened to the Jew and his guest speaking in a language they did not understand, the Jew and his guest became serious. All at once they all cried out, Dainu! The Jew would say some more words, and all the guests again would cry, Dainu! The king looked over at the advisor, and the advisor turned pale. You see, the advisor's name was Dainu. The king stood up and roared, Who stole my ring? Just then, all the guests cried out, Dainu! The king commanded his royal guards to seize the advisor. The king had the home of the advisor searched, where they found the king's ring. They jailed him, and he confessed to stealing the king's ring. And the Jew was richly rewarded and had all he needed for the Pesach in abundance. Dayenu. What a strange name for an advisor. Well, I don't know. I guess it would kind of be wherever they were. I guess maybe it was common or uncommon. Yeah, it wouldn't be a very common name now, would it? No, it probably wouldn't. Okay. Now we are on to my most favorite story of the three. Okay, this one is called Deported Jew, Deported, and the Monkey. Okay, so a long time ago, there was a poor Jew who worked very hard for his landlord, the Porets. The Porets took great pleasure in trying to provoke the Jew in one way or another. One day, the month before Pesach, the Porets came to the poor Jew and said, You are very fortunate that you have me to depend on for your livelihood. Otherwise, you would starve. The Jew was a simple and pious man, and in his simple way he answered the Poret, saying, I do not understand what you are saying. There is a God in heaven, that is for sure, and God provides all his creatures, and I thank him for everything I have. So, I am not worried for my livelihood. If the Porets decided not to serve as God's agent and provide for my livelihood, God will find me another source. Well, with that, the Porets became enraged. You are a lazy Jew, and I am not paying you for this month's work. If you believe your God will provide for you, then let him do so. You must be off my land by the end of the week. When you are starving, you will come back to me and beg me for your livelihood. Then we will see who you'll thank. And so the poets banished the Jew from his property right before the Pesach. The poor Jew now had no money for all his hard work and nothing to buy the necessities and provisions for Pesach. However, he did not seem to be worried. He went to his small house and told his family they must abandon the house by the end of the week and they should all prepare for the move. His wife was greatly distressed and began to sob. What will we do now? Where will we go? And what about the Pesach? The poor Jew looked at his wife and said, Don't worry, God will provide. And with that, he went to do the Mari prayers. Now, the Poretz had a huge treasure room in a large house where he kept all his gold. One of his great pleasures was to go into the treasury room each week and count and polish his coins. Now, not being a cultured man, the Poretz would put each coin in his mouth, spit on it, and then polish it until it shone brightly. Now, the Poretz also had a pet monkey. I bet you never thought we were going to get to the monkey part, did you? So he had a pet monkey, which he had dressed in a little red hat and red vest with gold trim and fake gold coins dangling from the vest that tinkled like bells as the money moved. When the poets would go into the treasury room each week, the monkey would go with the poets into the treasury room and watch him. The monkey watched his master put the coins into his mouth. The monkey thought the poets was eating the coins. Well, you know what they say. Monkey see, monkey do. A few days after the poets told the poor Jew that he had to leave the property, the poets went into the treasure room with the monkey to clean and count. As he was cleaning the coins, one of the servants came to the room and told the poets he had a messenger that had arrived with a message from the king. The poets left the room annoyed, leaving the monkey behind. The monkey climbed onto the table and began to eat the coins. One after another, the monkey put a coin in his mouth and swallowed it. The monkey ate so many coins that the poor monkey choked and died. When the poets finally returned to the treasury room, he saw the monkey on the floor. He picked up the monkey and tried to shake it awake and realized it was dead. Hearing the tinkling of money, he didn't realize the cause of its death. He thought he was hearing the fake coins on the monkey's vest. Stupid monkey, the poet said. Then he got a wicked idea. If the Jew thinks that his God will provide for him, let's see what he thinks when his God provides him with a dead monkey for all his prayers, he said. The Deported called one of his servants, and he commanded his servant to throw the monkey into the Jew's house. The servant took the dead monkey and, as he was instructed, threw the monkey through the window into the Jew's house. But when the monkey landed on the floor, its stomach burst open and all the gold coins scattered across the floor. A few nights later, the Deported sent his servant to see how the Jew was suffering without food or money. But the servant returned and reported that the Jew's house was empty and they were gone. The servant also reported that a rich Jew had just bought the biggest house in the town and was inviting all the Jews of the town to a lavish Pesach Seder. Just before Pesach, the poets went to visit the rich Jew and found it was the poor Jew that he had banished from his property. The poets was stunned and asked the Jew how he had come into so much money. The Jew told the poets that they were packing up the house to leave when suddenly someone had thrown a dead monkey into his house, and the monkey was full of hundreds of gold coins. The poets then lowered his head, dejected, and he admitted, "Now I truly see that it is your God who provides for all." Thus, the Jew was able to buy an abundance of provisions for Pesach. So, may you all be blessed with abundant resource for a Freiliche and kosher Pesach. May your tables abound with guests who enlighten your Seder with gems of Torah. May you and your children and your children's children not know from want for all your days. May your Seder table be blessed with the visible revelation of Eliyahu Hanavi in preparation for the coming of Melech Moshiach. And that is the three stories for the Segula for Pesach. I hope you enjoyed that. So it's nice to be back, maybe just for tonight, but it's nice to be back to tell stories again. So thank you all. Okay, so I guess we should move on to our Torah study. Let me get back on the main camera here. I don't know. I usually tell those stories, but I think Zeta actually does a better job of it. I don't know. What do you think? Okay. Okay, we are going to return to Rashi's commentary. And last week we left off on, let's see, we're chapter, this is the Sefer Shemot. And this is going to be Perek Yud Hey and Yud Chet and the Pasuk Vet. Chapter 18, verse 2. Okay, and because we are studying the Torah, Barak Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivav l'sok b'divrei Torah. We move Zeta's camera back where it belongs. There we go. Now it's out of my way. Okay. So this is the Parasha Yitro. Actually, one of my favorite parashot. I have a lot of favorite parashot, but this is one of them. Okay, so just checking the chat room. Okay. So we pick up with verse 2. Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, took Zipporah, the wife of Moshe, after her having been sent away. Rashi goes on to say here that after her having been sent away, speaking of Zipporah, when the Holy One, blessed is He, said to Moshe in Midian, go return to Mitzrayim, and the Torah goes on to say, and he took his wife and his children, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim. Okay, and of course we know what happened on the way back there. Okay, so Aharon went out to greet him, and as the Torah says, and he met him at the mountain of God. Aharon said to Moshe, with regard to his wife and sons, who are these? Moshe said to Aharon, this is my wife, whom I married in Midian, and these are my sons. Aharon said to him, and where are you taking them? Moshe said to him, to Mitzrayim. Aharon said to him, we grieve over the first ones who are already in Mitzrayim, and you come to add more people to them? Thereupon Moshe said to his wife, go back to your father's house. She took her 2 sons and went off. This is the having been sent away that the verse refers to. Okay, further commentary on this one. Let's see. It's over here. Okay, really just a reference to Mechilta. Yeah, that's about it. Not really, no further. What you would think there would be a lot of commentary on here, but strangely enough, there isn't. Okay, so we go on with verse 3, and it goes, and, which is kind of an odd place to break the verse, right in the middle of a sentence, after having been sent away, and her 2 sons, of whom were the name of one was Gershom, for he had said, I was a sojourner in a strange land. Okay, no commentary on that. And again, I thought I would merit some commentary by Rashi, but obviously not. No further commentary either. Actually, there's further commentary. Now, the further commentary on here just basically references back over to Mechilta again. Let's see. No commentary on 3, so we go into 4, and the name of the other one was Eleazar. Eleazar. For the God of my father came to my aid, and he saved me from the sword of Paro. Okay, Rashi goes on to say about verse 4, I saved me from the sword of Paro. When Datan and Aviram revealed that they knew about the matter of the Egyptian, remember when Moshe killed the Egyptian because he was basically beating a Hebrew man to death, and he buried him in the sand, and they said, and Rashi comes back later on to explain that when the Torah says the 2 were fighting, and they said, are you going to be a judge over us now? and he understood that it had become known what he did, that it was Datan and Aviram who were the ones fighting. They were actually brothers, and they were fighting. Um, so, um, so Datan and Aviram, who they knew about the matter of the Egyptian whom Moshe had killed, and Paro sought to kill Moshe. Moshe's neck became hard as a pillar of marble, and the blade of the sword could not penetrate it, the executioner's sword. Okay, so with regard to this, that had not penetrated, the blade of the sword could not penetrate Moshe's neck. Further commentary on this one says this is from Shemot Rabbah, chapter 1, verse 31, and Devarim Rabbah 227. See Rashi 2:15 above. From the sword of Paro, rather than simply from Paro, implies that Moshe was literally saved from Paro's sword. Okay, because he was about to be beheaded for killing an Egyptian. Okay, verse 5. Yithro, the father-in-law of Moshe, came to Moshe with his sons and wife to the wilderness where they were encamped by the mountain of God. Rashi goes on to say, to the wilderness. The Midbar, Shema Midbar. We too know that they were in the wilderness, and it would appear that the Torah would not have to tell us this obvious fact. But in mentioning this, the verse spoke in praise of Yithro. For he was living in a place of high honor in the world. Remember, he was a priest of Midian. Yet his heart was moved to go out to the wilderness, a place of desolation, to hear words of Torah. Instead of Moshe's father-in-law, Yithro, or whatever the other 6 names he has in the Torah, was a priest. He knew all of the religious rites of all the pagan gods around the world, and actually was a servant or priest to them, and he gave it all up. Or actually, I think Moshe actually says that once he realized after Moshe had explained the God of Israel and stuff, that he had given up all the others, and basically he had been thrown out, been told to leave. Okay. Here was the Torah. Okay, verse 6. He said to Moshe, I, your father-in-law, Yithro, have come with you and with your wife and her 2 sons with her. Rashi goes on to say, and he said to Moshe through a messenger, I, your father, Yithro, etc. Yithro's words imply, if you do not come forth in greeting on my account, come forth on account of your wife. And if not, come forth on account of your wife, come forth on account of her 2 sons. Okay, so further commentary on this one says, with regard to through a messenger, saying that through a messenger, the Mechilta, since Moshe had not yet come out to greet Yithro at this point, Yithro could not have spoken directly to him. Hence, he had to send a messenger. In regards to come forth for your wife, come forth for your, come on account of your wife, or come on account of your 2 sons, the additional commentary says, this verse says, I, your father-in-law Yithro, am coming to you and your wife and her 2 sons with her. With the verb am coming set between the subject, the standard form would be to have the verb follow all of the subjects. I, your father-in-law, Yitro, your wife, and her 2 sons are coming. By wording the verse as it does, the Torah indicates that Yitro would have been most pleased to have Moshe come out on account of his account alone. When Yitro was Yitro merely seeking honor, or did he have nobler intentions? Yitro sought to put an end to certain criticism regarding Moshe marrying his daughter, because she was not a Hebrew. Yitro wanted Moshe to come forth on his behalf to show the world that Moshe was not at all embarrassed to be Yitro's son-in-law, despite Yitro's earlier idolatrous lifestyle. But if Moshe was indeed ashamed of his father-in-law's past, then he should come forth on his wife's behalf to show that he was not at all embarrassed about her past and her family, thus removing the shame she may face. If Moshe did not feel comfortable about either, then to the very least, he should come forth on behalf of his children to remove any stigma apparent to their pedigree. Okay. Verse 7. Actually, we're at our halfway point. Let us go ahead and we'll take our break now. Now we have our stories and we've started the Torah study. Let's take our break and we will return in 6. Please stay tuned.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay, let us pick up where we left off. Not a lot of chat going on in the chat room tonight, surprisingly. Okay. So we left off on at verse 7, which is where we'll pick up. Verse 7, Moshe went out to greet his father-in-law, and he bowed and kissed him, and they inquired one man to the other about the other's well-being. Then they came to the tent. Rashi goes on to say, and Moshe went out. Yitro was accorded great honor at that time. For when Moshe went out to greet Yitro, Aharon, Nadav, and Avihu also went out. And who would there be who saw these leaders of the people go forth and greet Yitro and not go forth himself? He bowed and kissed him. Since the verse uses the ambiguous pronoun he, I do not know, this is Rashi speaking, I do not know who bowed to whom. That's one of the things, the great things I like about Rashi. As we see this, it's not that uncommon that we'll see Rashi actually say, I really don't know what this means. I really don't know, what they're referring to here. He actually states it right there for everybody to see that, I might be smart, but I'm not that smart, Okay, so Rashi is saying, I do not know who bound to whom. But when it says in the next verse, one man to another, I can infer who did the bowing. Who is called man? This is Moshe. And it says, and the man Moshe. Okay, so one man to another. Okay, it's kind of a logical assumption to make there. Okay, so the further commentary on this with regards to, let's see, there it is. Saw these leaders go forth and greet Yitro and not go forth himself. Speaking of Aharon, Nadav, and Avihu. The further commentary says from the Mechilta, the Chuma 6, by stating Moshe went out to greet his father-in-law rather than to greet them, the verse implies that Moshe fulfilled Yitro's first request. See Rachi's previous comment. If you will not come out because of me, then come out because of your wife, come out because of your children. If he was coming out for any other reason, it would have been he would have gone to them. In this case, it says that he went to greet his father-in-law. Okay, and he went out specifically to accord honor to Yitro. But how great would the honor have been had Moshe gone forth alone? Rashi understands that the others must have joined Moshe to form a huge welcoming committee. Thus, Yitro was accorded a great honor at that time. Okay, so with regard to this is Moshe, and it says, and the man Moshe, as far as who bowed to who. The further commentary references Numbers chapter 12, verse 3. Since man is used as the subject of the next clause of the verse, it is the subject of Vishtahu and Vaishak as well. Thus Moshe, who bowed, there it is. Where did I leave it? Okay. Thus Moshe was the one who bowed. But see the verse above in chapter 2, verse 21, where the word, okay, now I can actually see it, where the word Haish is used in reference to Yitro. Although both Moshe and Yitro are called Haish, there is a difference in the verse referring to Yitro. The word Haish stands alone. Yitro's name is not mentioned. Hence, the word Haish is a necessary part of the sentence. However, in the verse that speaks of Moshe as Haish, the word is used in addition to the name Moshe and is therefore superfluous to the sentence. Its appearance must be to inform us that Moshe is called Haish elsewhere. Okay, I'll go along with that. Okay, verse 8. Moshe told his father-in-law everything that Hashem had done to Paro and Mitzrayim for Israel's sake, all the trouble that had befallen them on the way, and that Hashem had rescued them. Rashi goes on to say about this, and Moshe told his father-in-law to draw his interest and to bring him close to Torah. All the troubles at the sea and of Amalek, the trouble. The letter Lamed and Aleph are part of the root of the word, and the letter Tav is an amendment, thus which serves to change the verb Lamed Aleph Hey into a noun, and is an essential element of the noun form which falls from it at times when the word in the form of a verb and rather than a noun. So too, this is the case with regard to the letter Tav, as the nouns teruma, setting aside, tanufa, waving, takuma, resistance, and tanoa, turning aside. Okay. Let's see. Further commentary on this. Okay. Basically, the only real commentary, well, yeah, basically, there's a lot of references to other sections of the of Rashi, but the one regarding to turning aside from Numbers 14:32, 34. See Rashi there. See also note 11 on page 8, according to the triliteral school. Oh my goodness, a triliteral school? The root of tela'am is lamed aleph hey. The word is in a class called the nache le'e. I.e., the third letter of the root is hey, and it falls out. And many conjunctions, the root of the conjunctions, word constructions, and stuff like that. Okay, so yeah, let's move on. Okay, verse 9. I guess if you're studying Hebrew and stuff like this would be valid, and we would spend a little more time on it. But let's just kind of move on. Verse 9, Yitro rejoiced over all the goodness that Hashem had done for Israel, and he rescued him. Hashem rescued him from the hand of Mitzrayim. Rashi says, Yitro rejoiced. This means, and Yitro rejoiced, this is the simple meaning. And a Gadic Midrash interprets the word so somewhere. Oh, there it is. V'yichad as follows. His flesh became prickly, i.e., he developed goosebumps, because he was aggrieved over the destruction of Mitzrayim. This is explained by the popular saying, if one is a convert or even the descendant of one who converted up to 10 generations ago, do not disgrace an Aramean or any other non-Jew in his presence. Interesting. Overall, the goodness of the manna, as well as the water that accompanied them through the wilderness, and the Torah. But above them all, he rejoiced that he rescued him from the hand of Mitzrayim. Up to now, no slave was able to escape from Mitzrayim, and the borders of the land were sealed. But these Israelites went out 60 myriad strong. That's 600,000. Okay. With regard to, let's see, where are we? So 9, 10, 11. Okay, with regard to, the waters that accompanied through the wilderness and the Torah, Yitro was aware of the dividing of the Yom Suf and the war with Amalek, but his rejoicing mentioned in the verse was not over them. It was specifically over goodness. This is the term which applies to receiving something beneficial. God's salvation of Israel from the Egyptians at the sea and from Amalek were not inherently beneficial. Rather, they are escape from potential harm. Okay, so the Torah is what they're talking about, the goodness. As it regards that he rescued him from the hand of Mitzrayim also, the further commentary says liberation from actual Egyptian bondage was also a goodness. This is indicated by the phrasing of the verse that he rescued him from the hand of Mitzrayim. Is not divided form over all the goodness that Hashem did to Israel by the vet, which would have meant and. This shows that he rescued him from the hand of Egypt is part of the goodness and not a separate act. Nevertheless, since the verse mentions it specifically, this implies that it was the source of special joy to Yithro. Okay. Let's see. Any other further? No further commentary on that. We go on to verse 10. Yithro, I haven't seen anything going on in the chat. If somebody in the chat room would just put something in the chat just so I know that the chat is still working, I would appreciate it. Okay, so we're on to verse 10. Verse 10, Yithro said, "Blessed is Hashem, who rescued you from the hand of Mitzrayim and from the hand of Paro, who rescued the people from under the hand of Mitzrayim." Rashi goes on to say, who rescued you from the hand of Egypt, Mitzrayim, a hard nation, and from the hand of Paro, a hard king, under the hand of Egypt. The term hand in this context is to be understood as the Targum Onkelos renders it, a marvat, an expression of tyrannization and dominance. Tyrannization, okay, tyrannization and dominance. This will do. Thank you, Simcha. I just want to make sure that the chat's working because I wasn't seeing any chatting. There's usually a lot of chatting going on in the chat room, and everybody's being fairly quiet tonight. Okay. Everybody must be thinking of Pesach. Oh, yeah, Donald, you got to change your clocks. You got to change your clocks. And really, I can't say too much because I think the clocks in here still haven't been changed yet. Fortunately, I have an alarm that reminds me, hey, get into the studio. You got a class tonight. Okay, so good to know the chat's working. Okay, good to have you down. Late or not, we don't care as long as you're here. Okay, so the word is an expression of tyrannization and dominance. The verse here refers to the hand that the Egyptians would lay heavily upon the Israelites. The third appearance of the word yad in the verse is the labor. Okay, so really the hand appears repetitious, as the verse has already said that God rescued you from the hand of Mitzrayim. Rashi understood that the first two hands referred to slavery. The Israelites were saved from the status of being chattels of others. Here, hand is used as a metaphor for tyrannization and domination. Now that I've read it correctly. Yithro thanked God not only for improving the legal status of the Israelites, but for taking them out of the misery of their labor. The Targum's interpretation of the final hand as tyrannization, hence labor, also explains another point in the verse's wording. Yitro begins by blessing Hashem who rescued you from the hand of Mitzrayim, and continues with a reference to God who rescued the people from beneath the hand of Mitzrayim. This change can be understood in the light of the Targum referred to by Rashi. The beginning of the blessing refers to the salvation from being subject to the authority of the Egyptians. Moshe and Aharon were also among these subject to Egyptian authority. Thus, it is part of his blessing. Yitro speaks of God rescuing you. The tribe of Levi, however, was exempt from the performance of slave labor for the Egyptians. Thus, the conclusion of Yithro's blessing, which referred to Egyptian tyranny in the form of labor, did not apply to Moshe and Aharon, because they were of a priestly class, so they did not have to. They did not have to labor as such. Moshe and Aharon were of the tribe of Levi. He therefore speaks of God who rescues the people to the exclusion of Moshe and Aharon. Okay, moving on to verse 11. Okay, let me just... Okay, take care of that little issue right there. Okay, moving on to verse 11. Now I know that Hashem is greater than all the gods, for with that which they schemed against them. Okay, Rashi goes on to say, now I know. I recognize him in the past, but now even more. Rashi goes on to say, all the gods. This, in fact, that Yitro could speak of all the gods, teaches us that he was familiar with all the idolatry in the world, that he did not leave a single form of idolatry that he did not worship. For that which they schemed against them. This should be understood as Targum Onkelos renders it. The Egyptians imagined that they would destroy the Israelites through water, and they themselves were destroyed by water at the Yom Suf, which they schemed. This means by which they did evil. As our rabbis interpret it, Zadu, in the sense of the word Vayezed in the verse. And Yaakov cooked a stew, as if to say, in the very kettle in which they cooked, they were cooked. Okay. Further commentary on this. Let's see. Let's go back here. Okay, with regard to recognize him in the past, but even more so now, from Mechilta, further commentary. By now, Yitro could not have meant that he had never known of the greatness of God in the past, for in Rashi's view, he had rejected paganism even before he met Moshe. Hence why, he was pasturing, while his daughters were pasturing sheep, and they were basically shepherds and wandering about, because he had already recognized God as the only God, and he had been basically given his walking papers, shall we say. Okay. Yeah, no more further commentary until we get to the next verse. So we're at the next verse. Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, took an olah offering and peace offering for God, and Aharon and all the elders of Israel came to eat bread with the father-in-law of Moshe before God. Grashi goes on to say an orla offering. The nature of this sacrifice is kamash ma'am, as implied by its literal meaning, ascends, for it ascends to the altar entirely. Okay, which means it totally goes up in smoke. The peace offering. This word is synonymous with shalamim, peace offering. And Aharon and all the elders of Israel came. And where did Moshe go? He is not one who went out to greet Yitro and caused him all the honor. Why is he not mentioned in the verse as one of the guests at the meal? Rather, we must say that Moshe was standing and waiting upon them before God. From here we learn that one who partakes of a meal at which Torah scholars participate, it is as if he has taken pleasure from the splendor of the Shekinah of the divine presence. Very interesting. Okay, so like with regard to the Olah offering, this is unlike other offerings which are eaten by either the Kohanim or the owner or both. The entire Olah is placed on the altar fire, for it is entirely burnt on the altar. Okay, moving on. The next one, further commentary with regard to the peace offering. Zevachim, folio 116a. Parts of the peace offering are burnt on the altar, with the rest being eaten by the Kohanim and those who offered the offering. Zevachim may in itself refer to all kinds of animal offerings. In Isaiah 111, for example, it is the general term which is followed by a listing of various offerings. However, when used in conjunction with another specific kind of offering, here, the olah, it is synonymous, it's a synonym for shalamim. Okay, cinnamon? Where did I get that from? Okay. As it regards to Moshe standing and waiting upon them. From the Mechilta, boy, my mouth just does not want to work right now. Mechilta. Since Moshe had wished to honor Yitro at the outset, he would not have caused him shame by absenting himself from the meal. He was there and acted as a servant rather than as a participant, so as to honor Yitro all the more. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, well, that's before God. From here we learn that one who partakes of the meal. With Torah scholars, from the Torah statement that the meal took place before God. With regard to the Shekinah and the divine presence, from Berachot, folio 64a, the Torah scholars whom Rashi described as reclining at the meal were Aharon and the elders. Okay. Verse 13. It was on the next day that Moshe sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moshe from the morning until the evening. This is where it gets really, really interesting. And there's a lot of commentary and a lot of really in-depth additional commentary, in which I think we are going to save this because I really want to delve into this, because this goes into the whole structure of law. The court system that Moshe established, based on the recommendation of Yitro, which Hashem said, good idea, you need to follow this, which actually comes down to us today in a very familiar form, probably not as ethical as we see in the Torah here, but structurally very similar to the kind of court system that we have today. So I want to save this for when we return, which will be after Pesach. Actually, after the first, after next week, because I'm not ready for Pesach. I know a lot of you are not quite ready for Pesach, so we're going to take next week, no classes next week, to make sure that we have time to prepare for the Pesach, because it is that important. So I don't want to distract anybody from preparing for the Pesach. Most importantly, myself, from not getting things done for Pesach. We will return after next week. We will return back to our Torah study. Yeah, the old rabbis say will not have, because that's going to be the second night. Oh no, Sunday will be second night. Well, it'll be in the announcements. Okay, when we put it up on Facebook, when we put it up on MeWe, you'll see what our plan is going forward from the first and second night staters of Pesach. Of course, if you want to keep up on that, go to the 7beggars.com website and sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get it in your email each week with a link right to the broadcast. So we're not really finishing that much early. So I hope you all enjoyed Zeta's stories, and Zeta's coming back to do a special little stint for us to tell the stories. Donald, you missed Zeta tell the 3 stories, so you'll have to, after we get done here, you'll have to replay the thing so you can hear the 3 stories for the Segula for Pesach that were told by Zeta. And don't forget that Friday night, Kabbalat and Ma'ariv Shabbat service at 8 p.m. Eastern, and Shachrit and Musaf on Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. Until then, everyone, we are simply going to say, Laila Tov.